Al-Aziz is one of the most common names of Allah. It comes from earth, actually. Azza, Azaza, Azaz, Ma'zuza. This is all used for tough ground. Like, earth you can dig into easily. That's not Ard Aziz or Azaz or Azza. But earth that's made of rock and you can't break through, tough earth, that's actually called Azaz. Unbreakable soil. Unbreakable land, or like rocky land. That's called Ard Ma'zuza. Farasun Mu'tazza was used, Mu'tazza is the attribute here for a horse that has very strong muscles. Like it's rock solid, it's built like that. That's called Mu'tazza. And then sometimes they had a camel that had a disease where its muscles become stiff, like muscle atrophy, right? And when it became so stiff, you couldn't milk the camel. You couldn't get the milk because its muscles are all tightened up. And that was actually called Naqatun Azuz, because it became so tough. So the common theme you're learning is rocks that are tough, muscles that are tough, muscles that have become stiff. Dayiqatul ahalil, this is mistyped. Ahalil min shiddati nasiji lahmiha. It's because of the tightness or the atrophy of the muscles, you cannot get milk out of the camel. Okay. Al-Izz also means the elevation of rank. So if you went from internship to manager, to executive manager, to director, you are increasing in izz. You're increasing in your rank in your company. An invincible person, let me explain what invincible here means. Nobody can take you down. Nobody can attack you. Nobody can challenge your position. If you're in an untouchable position, then you are called Al-Aziz. Al-Aziz. One Punch Man in his cartoon show is Aziz. Okay? So if you want to buy analogy, if you'd like to, So Superman without kryptonite is Aziz until kryptonite shows up. Or the Hulk or so, I don't know what. But these are examples of somebody who's invincible, can't be broken, can't be defeated, right? And that's called Al-Aziz. Al-Qawi, Al-Shadid, Al-Ghalib, Alladhi la yughlab. There's the strong one that wins every time and cannot be won over. ما لا يمكن, this typo, ما لا يمكن الوصول إليه مثل حصن عزيز. It's also used for something that is impossible to beat. Like they use it for a castle or a fort. Castles used to have these walls outside, right? So that armies can't just walk in. They have to try to beat the wall or break the wall or catapult the wall, to be able to penetrate. But a wall that just won't break and a castle that just won't be, dominated is actually called Hisn Aziz. A fort that is impossible to break through. An impregnable fortress. To strengthen and empower is Azzaza. This is used in the Quran. Like, in Surah Yasin, there were 3 messengers sent to one nation. Right? إِذْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهِمُ اثْنَيْنِ فَكَذَّبُهُمَا فَعَزَّزْنَا بِثَالِثٍ. So from the same word Aziz. We sent them 2 messengers, then we made them stronger with the 3rd one. So to empower is actually the meaning of ta'ziz. And Azza is also used for when you are bullying someone. When you're being tough with someone. From the same rugged, tough, overbearing. It's used, for example, in the story of Dawood alayhi salam, when he was praying in his quarters. And 2 people just showed up in his private quarters, right? And they said, oh, this is my brother. He has 99 sheep. I only have 1, right? And they said, Azzani fil khitab. He used that word. Azzani fil khitab. He's really tough with me and he's intimidating and he's overpowering me and bullying me when he talks to me. So Azza is used when you're overpowering someone. And Azza alayhi is also used when you are afflicting or hurting someone. Okay. Now, this is just some of the background dictionary meanings of the word. Let's talk about how it's used for Allah in a second. In the Quran, it's used 89 times for Allah. It's quite a bit. It's one of the most common names of Allah in the Quran. 10 other times it's used for other than Allah. So it's not only used for Allah, it's also used for other than Allah. So for example, in Surah Yusuf alayhi salam ended up in the house of someone called what? Al-Aziz. Al-Aziz. And when Yusuf alayhi salam came out of prison and he was made minister and his brothers came barely with any food and they were starving, they were broken, they said, Ayyuha al-Aziz. So who did they call Al-Aziz? Yusuf. So Yusuf used to be the slave of Al-Aziz and eventually took his job and became Al-Aziz himself. So he was the minister, and that's one of the words in Arabic for the minister. So similarly, there are, in the Quran, Allah describes a person being thrown into hellfire that used to have a lot of power in Makkah. And he says, Dhuk, taste this hell. Innaka antal azizul kareem. You're the Aziz, right? Please, sir, enjoy this. So this sarcastically, they're being made to taste the punishment of hell. because they used to use their power in the wrong way. Al-Aziz also, and this is an observation we will get into when we finish this discussion. 47 of these times, so 89 times altogether, 47 times Allah uses this word with Al-Hakim. Al-Aziz, Al-Hakim, or Azizun Hakim, or Azizan Hakima. So two names of Allah paired together. You should know from my own studies, I'll share with you my own theory on what I find the most convincing approach to studying the names of Allah in the Quran. You know, people say, why don't you do a series on the names of Allah? It's like, if it was that easy, I wish it was. It's not that simple. So here's just some things that you might benefit from that will help you in your own pondering and your own study and your own thinking about the names of Allah. Every name of Allah has a unique identity. So you should ponder Al-Malik by itself, Al-Quddus by itself, Al-Aziz by itself, Al-Hakim by itself. Every one of them has their own unique identity. But then what Allah does is sometimes He puts two of His names together. When He puts them together, each one of them still has their own unique identity, but together they create a new meaning. They create a third meaning. So there's the meaning of A, there's a meaning of B, but A and B together create the meaning of C. So there's a C meaning also that happens, you know, like in chemistry, you have one element and two element and they have a chemical reaction and now it's a compound. It's a different thing now. It's similar to that. So Ghafoor has its own qualities. Rahim has its own qualities. But Ghafoor and Rahim together also have a third quality, a unique distinction. So Al-Aziz Al-Hakim comes together many, many times, which means Al-Aziz has qualities, Al-Hakim has qualities, and together they have a unique distinction, which we'll get to when we get towards the end. Okay, now, Aziz, I'll tell you some things about the word Aziz, the two basic meanings. One is power and strength that cannot be overcome, the unbeatable one. If someone is Aziz, they are unbeatable, okay? Someone has Izzah, they are unbeatable, okay? This word is used even like for example, by Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, where he says, أَعَزَّنَا اللَّهُ بِالْإِسْلَامِ نَحْنُ قَوْمٌ أَعَزَّنَا اللَّهُ بِالْإِسْلَامِ. We are a people, Allah made us unbeatable because of Islam. وَإِذِ ابْتَغَيْنَا الْعِزَّةَ مِنْ غَيْرِهِ أَذَلَّنَا اللَّهُ. And when we seek power from anyone other than Him, Allah will make us weak. Allah will make us. So Azza there could mean power, but Izzah has another meaning, and that's respect, rank or respect. When someone has more Izzah than you, then they have a higher level of respect. So now we've got two meanings, unbeatable power and what? Respect. So we should understand why those two things are together in this word. Is it possible you respect someone but they don't have a lot of power? Yeah. You could have somebody who's a very wise, old man. You have a lot of respect for him, but he has no power. I think that Yaqub alayhi salam was very wise and respected, but he lived a life where he was mostly not empowered. He didn't have any izzah in his family. He didn't have any control over his sons. Isn't that the case? So he has respect without power. Is it possible you have power without respect? Yeah, all the time. Like how you feel about the police sometimes. They may have power, but you don't respect it, or you don't like it. Or a judge may have power, but the people he's judging may not respect him, may not like him. Or a president in the country may have power, but people don't respect him or her. You understand? So it's possible to have power without respect. It's also possible to have respect without power. Those two things can happen. Sometimes even you don't have to think about government. You can think of a family. It could be the head of a household, the father in the household or the head of the household has a lot of power, but has no respect. And sometimes he's a very respectable man, but nobody treats him right in the family. He has no power. So those two things can exist without each other. They're exclusive. But when you have someone who has the highest power and at the same time gets the highest level of respect, together that becomes a Aziz. Aziz is when both of those things combine in one figure. And that is Allah's name, Al-Aziz. Allah has the ultimate might, the power, and He is also the worthy of the highest level of respect. Okay? Which is interesting because in Al-Aziz, you've got something from Al-Malik, which is about power, and there's something respectable, which is in Al-Quddus. Right? So it's actually taking elements from both and building up on that in the word Al-Aziz. Okay. Now, Al-Aziz, man kana yuridu al-izza, falillahi al-izzatu jami'a. Whoever wants izzah, Allah says, Allah owns all of it. You know what this means? This is a concept in the Quran. That means anyone who ever has any power or anyone who ever has any respect in this world, they didn't get it themselves. That came from Allah. That came from it. So my power over anything and my respect, the respect that I have in a society, the respect I even have for myself, it wasn't generated by me. It was generated by Allah. فَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ جَمِيعًا تُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ. You can humiliate you can empower and honor whoever you want. You can humiliate and weaken whoever you want. وَاذْكُرْ عَبْدَنَا دَاوُدَ. I love this phrase. Dawud alayhi salam is one of the most powerful, politically powered and empowered prophets in history. Right? He was a massive ruler and he had great empire under him. Okay? And Allah, when He describes him as Allah's slave. So it's a story about how powerful Dawood is, but his first introduction is he's Allah's what? Slave. Just to remind that actually his power is nothing because he's just a slave of Allah. All power actually comes from Allah. His izzah came from Allah Azza wa Jal. And so usually subjugation, when somebody overpowers you, somebody forces you to do something, somebody tells you, like for example, if people are arresting a person, right? They're making them put their hands behind their back and they're putting handcuffs on them. It's humiliating, isn't it? When someone overpowers you, it's humiliating. If two brothers are having an argument or a fight and one brother pins the other one down on the ground and says, say sorry and I'll let you go. Say, I'm never going to say it. Say it. And then he finally says sorry. Is that humiliating? Yep. And then when he finally lets him go, I didn't mean it. And then he runs away because he's trying to recover his dignity. All right. That never happened to me. I don't have brothers. I'm just saying. Okay. So, Azzani fil khitab, he's humiliating me. In other words, when someone exacts their izzah on you, then it is humiliating. Sometimes you may have authority, but you don't use it. Right? I have an authority as a boss in my company. I have authority over my employees. And if my employees mess up, they come to me and say, hey, I really messed up. I'm sorry. I have two choices. I could be Aziz right now and say, oh yeah? Oh, you messed up. Let's go over it again. And I could humiliate the guy. I could humiliate him. Or I could just say, it's okay. Just, don't worry about it. It happens. When I do that, don't worry about it. It happens. I didn't exercise my right as what? As Aziz. And I'll show you. Maybe I was being Hakim at the time. You get what I'm saying? Because I could be Aziz right then and there, but I decide, you know what? Longer term, I would rather this person make that correction themselves, and maybe me forgiving them this time will build more respect for me in their heart, and they will develop more loyalty instead of developing resentment. So maybe longer term, it's better for them that I right now don't exercise my izzah, I exercise my what? Hikmah. So I choose to step on the accelerator or release the accelerator depending on the next. Do you see how there's a relationship between the two? Right? By way of that example? Okay. So now let's talk a little bit more about the two names that are similar in these four names. Al-Malik and Al-Quddus are similar. Why? Al-Malik means king and Al-Aziz means authority. Right? So they both have to do with power, control, and authority. So then what's the difference? How would you understand the difference between them? A really cool place to understand the difference between them is Surah Yusuf. Because Surah Yusuf uses Al-Malik as one character, and Surah Yusuf uses Al-Aziz as another character in the same story. So the king of Egypt is called Al-Malik. But the minister is called Al-Aziz. Now, how many people here have businesses? If you have a business? Very few. Okay. Okay. If I asked this question in America, most people would have raised their hand. We're an entrepreneurial nation. Anyway, so if somebody has a business, they own the business, they invested in the business. Let's just say sometimes you have something called a passive investor. He says, hey, I'm going to give you my money. You buy this building. You find the tenants. You run it. You manage it. You're the manager. I'm the owner. Okay. So the one who owns it, does he check every day? No, he just checks in 6 months. How's the financial report? Am I making money or not? And every day, if somebody didn't pay their rent, or somebody has an electrical problem, somebody has a gas problem, somebody has this problem or that problem, who's dealing with that? Not the investor, not the owner, but the manager. The manager is dealing with it, right? So the owner handed power over to the manager. Now think about government. There's the king, and the king says, I want to collect taxes from every farmer. But the king is not going to go collect the taxes. The king is going to tell his military general. The military general is going to tell his lieutenants. The lieutenants are going to tell their battalion commanders. The battalion commanders are going to tell their individual soldiers. Each individual soldier is going to go knock on the door. Is the king going and knocking on the door? No. So the king is actually powerful, but by proxy. Not directly, but it's indirect. You understand? So a lot of times when you deal with authorities, like the police was given the authority by the state, right? So that when the police stops me, it's not actually because of that person's power. It's the power that was granted to him by proxy from the mulk, from the governance. You understand? So the Malik, the king, the term is actually about power. That is the top command is issued by the Malik, but then it is executed by people in the lower ranks. Now let's go to the lowest rank. Let's go to, let's say, one police officer or one soldier. The king made the order, I want to collect taxes. And then there's, he's A, there's B, C, D, F, E, F, G, H, and all the way down to X is the soldier. At the bottom of that chain of command. All the way almost at the bottom. When he goes to collect taxes, he beats the guy up. Or he takes a little bit less than he should take. Or he takes more than he should take. Why? Because in that moment, who has all the authority? The soldier does. He's actually Aziz in that situation. There's the Malik up there, and there's the Aziz down here. The Aziz is the one who actually exercises his power and exercises his authority. And these are usually two separate things. You have people that run for the presidency or the prime ministership in different countries. They have elections. They say, I will execute this policy, this policy, this policy. They win the power, and then they're not able to implement their own policies because they may have mulk, but they don't seem to have what? Izzah. They're not able to execute because the people under them are not listening to them, or they're not following what they say they should be doing. You understand? When a business is not succeeding, then the owner says, I need new management because I have the mulk, but I don't have the what? I don't have the izzah. I need new management because they're going to do better izzah job for me. You understand? So Allah takes both mulk and izzah. He's Al-Malik and he's Al-Aziz. You see why that's powerful? Because now, not a leaf moves without Allah's power and authority. No one gets humiliated or honored except by Allah's command. Teachers, I'll give you one last example. Teachers, there's a policy in the school that if you fail your exam, you will no longer be graduating, right? But that's the policy on top. And the principal has hired the department heads, the headmasters for each department. And then the departments have hired the teachers. And the teacher is the one who actually has authority over the student. And the student failed the exam by 2 points. According to the mulk of the school, this student should be expelled, or they cannot move to the next grade. But the teacher says, hey, just do this extra assignment, I'll give you an extra 2 points. I'll let you pass. Because in the end, who had the izzah? The teacher did. Sometimes you have people at the restaurant, can I have some ketchup? We don't allow that here. We don't give extra ketchup. Really? Read the sign. I saw you gave it to your cousin that was right before. You gave him 4 extra ketchups. You can't give me a ketchup? I know you have the izzah, and you're acting like you're working under the mulk. The strangest tafsir of Quran. But you understand the difference between these two? And how Allah is the highest authority and the most intimate, immediate authority also between both of these names. Why was it important for Yusuf to take over the Aziz role when the king is already there? Because the king does not know how to execute all of these, the crisis, the economic crisis. Who has the capability of doing that? Yusuf alayhi salam. So even though there was a Malik, Aziz was needed. This is the concept of kingdom and authority that sometimes gets separated. But Allah doesn't allow for them to be separated. And He says He's Malik and He's also Al-Aziz. Both combined together. Okay? So, Now, throughout human history, someone seizing power or taking the throne needs to settle into the throne, stabilize the kingdom, establish his authority. One might become Al-Malik and be considered good, Quddus, but still not become Al-Aziz. That's another point. You know, when people become newly appointed, then their government is stable or unstable still? Unstable. They say, oh, let's see how the first 100 days go. Or if it's a new king, let's see if he gets assassinated in the first week. Let's see if his brother kills him. Let's see if his uncle kills him. You know, back in the day, sometimes they would be in the Chinese emperors among them, for example, a 4-year-old would become the ruler. He's just sitting there in his diapers. He's ruling China, you know, because they're like, I don't know who's going to come and kill him. So he's got mulk, but his authority is not settled. It's not actually, he's not invincible. He's not someone who cannot be overpowered. So it's shaky. So he's got mulk, but he doesn't have izzah. Allah is Al-Malik and Al-Aziz at the same time. Okay, so now let's talk about Al-Aziz and Al-Hakim. Actually, let me tell you a little bit about Al-Hakim and then we'll talk about that. And then I'll give you your first break. So Hakama, this is actually the word was Hakamatul Insan Wadda'ina. Hakama means the chin. There's a weird concept in Arabic. The chin, or this jawbone, is called Hakama for human beings. It's also called that for sheep. And the idea is it holds your face together. It holds your face in place. This isn't there, you know? So, منعها من التفكك والتسيب سواء كانت مادية أو معنوية أو كلاما, meaning something that prevents something else from falling apart. The idea is the chin is keeping your face from falling apart. Okay? It's also, ihkam was also used for when they put the saddle on a horse. Sometimes they put a thing on a horse's chin and then you pull on it. You pull on its neck, right? That's actually an ihkam also. When a building is well structured, so it won't fall apart, the foundations are strong, the pillars are strong, they say, uhkimatil bina. Uhkimatil bina. And from it came the word hukum, which you might be familiar with. Hukum means a verdict or a decision. And a hakim is a ruler, right? But a ruler who makes firm decisions, well thought out decisions. From this, we also get the idea of hikmah. Anyone know what hikmah means? Wisdom. The concept of wisdom in Arabic is really interesting. It is actually based on the idea that you've considered all of the factors, and after considering all of the factors, you have an opinion that's very firmly rooted, so that this decision you're making or this idea you have won't fall apart. You know, it's not whimsical, it's not flimsy, it's very well thought out, it's secure, like the chin holding the face secure, right? Or the building being well built. Ideas that are well built, well tested, they don't fall apart. The sum of those ideas become hikmah, they become wisdom. Okay? So he says, Al-hikmatu hiya ma'rifatu afdal al-ashya' bi afdal al-ulum. The best of knowledge, based on the best of knowledge and the best of know-how, you understand how to take the best course of action. That would be hikmah. Hikmah is also used in Arabic for wise sayings. I gotta learn some German wise sayings before I go. Everywhere I go, I have to learn some wise sayings. Like I learned one wise saying in Malaysia. I'm going to butcher it. They say, do it first, say sorry later. Because if you ask permission first, what are they going to say? No. So just do it and then say sorry. It's very wise. Yeah, it really works. Okay. Don't try this at all. Especially not in Islam. Like do it first and then ya sorry Allah. The Malaysian wisdom. Anyway, so the idea of wisdom in Islamic literature, hikmah, is actually a really strong idea. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to have a special 30-minute session with you guys just on wisdom, because this is a huge concept, and we have a variety of ideas of what wisdom means, right? And I want to develop a Quran-inspired concept of what it means to have wisdom. So this is Allah's name, Al-Hakim, which basically comes down to two things. The decision maker, but the decision maker who makes decisions based on wisdom. Okay, so he has hukum, which means he has the power to make decisions, but he makes them based on wisdom. And wisdom means you considered all the factors, right? A hakim is different from a qadi. A qadi just makes a judgment. A hakim says, oh, you have a situation, you want me to solve it? Let me find out all the other witnesses, all the other situations, because if I make this decision, who else will this impact? What will be the trickle effect? You know, like the butterfly effect thing? What will be the domino effect of this decision? If I considered everything that I made a decision, that would be a Hakim because he used proper hikmah. Okay? Now, Al-Aziz Al-Hakim are paired together 47 times in the Quran, so we should learn something about that. Let's think about a human being before we think about Allah. If a human being has complete authority, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You have complete power. Authority that is unquestioned can often be associated with unwise, rash, and unilateral decisions. I'm going to do whatever I want because I'm the king. I said I want this. I said kill that person. I said let this one go. And you just become like a tantrum child. You could just do whatever you want because you have no controls over you. That's why rulers of the past had wise counsel. And even now, presidents have a cabinet, right? And advisors, strategic advisors. So the president says, man, these, like in sitting in America, some president can say, these Russians, they're annoying me. Let's bomb them. And then I'm just in the mood to bomb while he's eating his French fries, right? Then the strategic, sir, actually, it will cause this following chain effect, and this is going to affect the economy in this way, and politics in this way, and this way. Can't bomb anyone. It's been so long, guys. It's been like 3 months I didn't bomb anyone. In other words, if you just have absolute authority, then it will create disaster in the human realm. And so human beings, since the beginning, whenever you have authority, they have to have some kind of what? Counsel. Some kind of wise counsel. And if you don't have that, they have, for example, in the American constitutional system, they have something called checks and balances. They didn't want to give the president all the authority. The government was divided into the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, 3 different branches. Why? Because if you give all the authority to the president, then that's going to turn into a dictatorship and it's going to be unwise. Right? So you have to break up the authority. The Izzah is actually broken up. And they thought this will be a wiser approach. It can also be associated with whimsical decisions that sway from one direction to another spontaneously. In other words, one day the king says, get out of here, I never want to see you again. The next day he says, hey, where's that guy? I miss him. I like his jokes. The king can change his mood split second, and the whole law changes in the country. If you're living in a dictatorship, your entire nation depends on the king's mood because he's running a dictatorship. And this is not just about kings and large authorities. Sometimes you have dictators in a family. Sometimes you have dictators in a company. The owner of the company, just one day we're going this way, one day we're going that way. One day you're fired, one day you're hired. You never know based on their mood. So what is missing when people tend to have authority? Wisdom seems to be missing. Step back, consider all the factors before you make a decision. Know what you're getting, what are the ramifications, what are the consequences? Are you going to be taking this decision back tomorrow? Is this just emotion or is this actually well thought out? Meaning, in the world, in life, when we think of izzah, many times the more izzah someone has, the less hikmah they have. The less hikmah they have. Allah Azza wa Jal describes himself perfectly Al-Aziz, and separately as Al-Hakim, but now they're together. He's the only Aziz that's truly also what? Al-Hakim. This is his authority, always executed with the highest levels of wisdom. And even above all of that, Allah says about himself, فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. So those 2 names have something to do with each other. But there's 2 other names we didn't compare to each other, which are Al-Quddus and Al-Hakim. Al-Quddus is the sanctified one, and is connected with heavenly matters, as we talked about before, right? So the spiritual matters, the matters of goodness and morality, they exist in reclusion, meaning they don't deal with worldly things. I don't want to know about the market. I don't want to know about the social situation or the political situation. I just want to know about what's happening, what's right and wrong in the heavenly sense, in the spiritual sense. The wise counsel, and by the way, kings in the past, they had 2 kinds of advisors. They had the spiritual advisor and they had the strategic advisors. Okay, so the king would go to the pope or the church or whatever for blessings and prayers and what should I do? And they would go to their military advisors and their economic advisors for what should I do? And were they always on the same page, these 2 advisors? No, they hate each other. Like, why is he listening to him? Why is he listening to him? I remember when the first time a Catholic became president in the United States, and John F. Kennedy became president, there was a whole issue in the U.S. about Well, he's Catholic, so is he loyal to the Constitution or is he loyal to the Pope? And if he goes and has a conversation with the Pope and the Pope tells him, issue this policy, go against this policy, is he going to follow that or that? Where's his loyalty? Is he going to follow his counsel coming from the Muqaddas side, or is he going to follow his actual cabinet, the Hikmah side? Two different sides. And so, in a sense, the Muqaddas class concerns itself with the inwardly and the wise counsel with the outwardly. Allah needs no counsel. Allah needs no inwardly. He is himself Al-Quddus and he is himself Al-Hakim. No other king can be this. No other king can be like this. So this, in this way, now you'll understand this point. Kings had two kinds of counsel in the past, spiritual and strategic. Many times the two were at odds with each other. Allah in these names establishes the most complete description of kingdom. His kingdom encompasses righteous holiness, direct authority with invincible power, wisdom and secure governance, taking all factors into account, meaning this is the most perfect kind of kingdom. And on top of that, then you understand what Allah says when He says, فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. He does whatever He wants. Now when He says He does whatever He wants, it's not like when a human being does whatever they want. This is a higher level of whatever He wants. And so now you come back to tasbih and we end this session. This description covers every flaw that all kingdoms otherwise have. You can have a kingdom that doesn't have the authority. You can have a kingdom that isn't righteous. You can have a kingdom that doesn't have the wise counsel. You can have things missing. But the focus on وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ in يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ is kinaya, that it is time that people of the world recognize this truth and were introduced to Allah's perfect kingdom. They need to, when they recognize who Allah is, they'll recognize what the perfect kingdom of Allah looks like. There must be some perfect way to introduce them to this king so they too become people of what? Tasbih. If the kingdom is perfect, then that king deserves to be considered perfect. And if you consider someone perfect, what do you do of them? You do tasbih of them. Now you understand the logic of the ayah. يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, Al-Aziz, Al-Hakim. As we get to the end of this ayah, now we will see, now that Allah has described Himself as the perfect king, and everybody does tasbih, all the rest of creation know this. It seems the only ones who don't really know this are human beings. There must be a way for human beings to get to know this king and how perfect He is. And that's what the subject matter of the second ayah is going to be. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.